They are calling me doctor. They are wishing me well. I will be a doctor sometimes this year if my professors attires see that I qualify. Yeah, sometimes during this year I will defend my dissertation, and when they see that I qualify, they will say I'm a doctor. Thank you for wishing me well. But now title pastor will be enough. Okay? And even if I become a doctor, I think I still like pastor. The topic that I'll handle this afternoon is Ellen White. I think we can project it. Ellen White on the remnant. My topic is, or my discussion is divided into 3 sections. The first will be the prevalent views on the term remnant. And then the second section of my presentation will be on Ellen White's view on the remnant. And then finally, I'll end up with a brief analysis of some of the groups that claim SDA Church is not remnant. We will just proceed with the first segment of my presentation, which is the views that are there about remnant. Okay. Let's just move to, I think, the second slide. Yeah. The first view is the traditional position. This is the position that is generally accepted by the Adventists when you say the term remnant. It is since the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the main body proclaiming the perpetuity of the law of God and the Sabbath, and since, in addition, there was a manifestation of the gift of prophecy in this particular church, as indicated in Revelation 12:17, it can be identified as God's faithful end-time remnant. So the first view about the remnant is that the SDA church, the church to which we belong, is remnant. The visible organization around the world is the remnant. This view is presented by one of our scholars, Paffel. Gerald Fundel works at the BAIR and is a proponent of this traditional view. Now let's look at the second view on remnant. These are views that are held by Adventists, so we can go through them. The second one is that God's remnant includes Adventists and non-Adventists. Before I read what is in the slide, you know, back in 1950s, our church went through some transition. There were a lot of questions about our church. It was being even dubbed a sect. So as a result, the church sat down and some scholars produced a document which came in form of a book, Questions on Doctrine. And in this one, because of the trend of the period, apparently from this statement we'll find that we are trying to open up so that the term is not seen as exclusive, but inclusive. That's the idea of this second position. Adventists do not equate their church with the church invisible. God has sincere followers in all Christian communications. Though Adventists see themselves as the remnant found in Revelation 12:17, they do not believe that they are the only, I should have highlighted that word only, they are the only Christians in the world, or that we are the only ones to be saved. This statement can be found in Questions on Doctrines. So this is apparently sort of expanding the view of what remnant is. Now let's look at the third position. The third position. The third position is remnant within what? Within remnant. The position taken by Hope International and Heartland Institute these are some groups in the church that I really don't know how to place them, whether you can call them offshoots or independent organizations or anything in between. I don't know. I don't know. But this is their view. They are persuaded that the church is not preaching historic Adventism, and that it is in what? Apostasy. Yet they say there is a group of church members who are loyal to the Lord, and they are the only ones who constitute the true remnant of God, the faithful remnant. So in essence, they are saying, yes, there is the Adventist church, but within that Adventist church, there is a what? There is a remnant. Okay, this is the view that is held by some of organizations that are independent, like Heartland and so and so. And the main theme here is that the church has apostatized. Now, the other view, this is the fourth one, is that the remnant is an invisible entity, implying that you cannot see the remnant. So, also implying that the visible SDA church is not the what? Is not the remnant. But let's read the statement. The remnant is by its very nature invisible. The best exponent of this view is a person by the name Steve Daly. He calls us to stop thinking of ourselves as God's chosen people and start recognizing the existence and the ministry of God's chosen peoples. It is a call to move from ethnocentric remnant theology to a spirit of religious affirmation which acknowledges that the kingdom of God on earth transcends every religion, religious movement of humankind, and rejoices that the future kingdom will include many what? Mansions. So in this view, you cannot see the remnant. God's people belong to all what? All religions. Interestingly, when I was doing this study, there's an element of truth in each of these. That's what I'm sensing here. There's an element, but let's go on and see the next view. The next view, which is now the fifth, is remnant is not yet what? A reality. There's no remnant now. It's the future thing. The remnant of Revelation is yet to appear. It is more than an established institution. The remnant is not to be defined in terms of the quality of life and faith, and not in terms of membership of ecclesiastical organization. Recognizing that the concept of remnant is very important for Adventist theologian self-definition, even though the remnant is still in the future, the Adventist church may refer to itself as the proleptic remnant. That term is big, but it is simple. It simply means you envision beforehand that this is the envisioned end time remnant. Adventist is simply a symbol of the real remnant that is coming in the future. Okay? In essence, that its members will be absorbed in the eschatological polarization in the final remnant, the true remnant of God. Jack Provence, one of our speakers, I don't know, was it written? It is written, or Birth of Life, something. He propagated this view, which implies that at the moment, we don't have a remnant. A remnant is a future thing. The final view that I have here is sociological understanding of the remnant. This is propagated by Scriven and Thiel, generally representing the liberal thought in Adventist circles. In the Bible, remnant addressed socio-political issues and suggests that in order for the remnant to be loyal to its understanding of remnant, it is necessary for it to be in the forefront or at the forefront of social and political reform. Adventist understanding of the mission of the remnant as calling people to obedience to the commandment does not, according to one gentleman, that's Scriven, do full justice to the message of the book of Revelation. The emphasis should be put on social and political reform. Social and political reform. This is the burden of this gentleman. But I don't know, you will tell me which one you think is right. But in Revelation, when you read Revelation and remnant in Revelation, is it about supplying this or that or changing governments? I think it's about the gospel. And I saw another angel flying in there, having an everlasting what? Gospel. I don't know where he got this theory of social. People can read the Bible. Theologians who are here, I'm also a theologian. I don't know, sometimes I read how people do theology and you wonder. And you wonder. However, there's also truth in that. There was a statement some years ago that you were so much concerned by propagating the three angels' messages that we forgot the element of helping people who are needy in the society and so on and so forth. So let's look at the summary of the views. Please, the other slide now. The summary of the views. The first view is the traditional view. This is the view that the visible SDA church is the what? Is the remnant. But let me just raise a question, which you may also contribute during the question time. Does it mean that all who are in the SDA church are God's people? I leave that to you. Maybe that's the problem with that view. Maybe that's the problem with that view. Because, sincerely speaking, my fellow believers, you can go to, there's a church here in the Philippines called Iglesia or Iglesia? Eh? Iglesia ni Cristo. I always confused because why are they saying ni? Why can't they say in? But I think they are very, one day, let me tell you, I was in Manila. And you know, I'm a foreigner. I don't know direction in Manila. I have to ask every place I have to ask. So I didn't know one bus taking me from one place to another. So I met a fellow at the bus stage. I asked, "Sir, is this bus going to," I think I was going to Makati. "Is this bus going to Makati?" He said, "I will show you." No, not this one. I will show you. Then I found somebody to talk to. So we started talking. Then when the bus came, we got into the bus. We sat on the same chair. He removed his money and paid my fare. To Makati. So we started talking. I told him I'm staying at Ayas. I am from Kenya. I've been here for so long. We started talking. Then I asked him, "Are you a Christian?" And he said, "I'm a Christian." Which denomination? Iglesia ni Cristo. I am Iglesia ni Cristo. Then I said, "Okay. How do you do your things?" I started asking him about that church. I found the person was a deeply committed member of that church. Deeply committed member of that church. And he impressed me by those few minutes that we sat in the bus and it dropped. And before, because it dropped before me, he got out of the bus before me. He made sure he went to the is it conductor? Yeah. "Please, when you reach such a place, help this man." I was left with an impression, this is a Christian. That's the impression I got. Now, that's my eyes. My eyes can cheat. But the truth is, in other churches, they are God's people. Is that wrong? There are people who are very sincere and godly. So I don't know. Traditional view is sort of, the problem with traditional view is that it is X or in. Exclusive. exclusive. Okay. Now, if you go to God's remnant, include Adventists and non-Adventists. Now, the problem with this second view, you will discuss. It's not my business to go deep in this. It's a good study. You know, we Adventists, we get our sense of identity and mission from the fact that we are what? We are remnant. If remnant is everybody, tell me, what is the purpose of this now? Even AUP is offering special education. Special education. If everybody is offering like this, why come? Oh, this is the problem with this view. If everybody is a remnant, then what are we doing? What purpose? That's the problem with this one. You see? That's the problem with this one. Now, another one. Remnant within remnant. You see, these people are escaping from one problem and getting into another problem. They are saying, okay, the church has apostatized, so in the church, it is only them, a few group in the what? Just now you were discussing with this gentleman, he's saying, not even one, only few. So these people are looking at the church and saying, everybody in the church has apostatized. So only few. The problem with this group is exclusivity. And they're running away from a group problem and forming another what? Another group. So it doesn't solve the problem. Number 4 now. Remnant is an invisible what? Entity. I think there's a sense in that because the real true people of God, only God can do what? Can see, isn't it? Even in this congregation, some of us may appear to be very good Christian, Bible and singing and nice. But only God does what? Only God knows. Only God knows. We don't know. Only God. So, it is true that the remnant church is invisible. But the problem with this view is that the Bible, Old Testament, when God talks of a remnant, it's always a visible remaining group. When he was discussing with Elijah, I have a remnant. He counted the number, isn't it? It was visible. Yeah, remnant should also be visible. Remnant is not only invisible in the Bible, it is visible. So that is the problem with this view. Now, remnant is not yet a reality. Who told him that remnant is... Who told him? If I read prophecy clearly, my brothers, Revelation 12:13, we are Adventists. Okay? And the dragon went to do what? To make war with the remnant of her seed. If you read that statement in context, it happened after 1,260 what? How do you interpret that if you are saying it is not yet? Tell me. How do you interpret 1,260 days? Is that one also future? Huh? What I know is this. There was an Old Testament remnant. Every time the children of Israel apostatized, there was a what? A remnant. Every time there was a calamity, there was a remnant, isn't it? In the New Testament, the same. During the Dark Ages, the same. At the end of the time, there will be what? Why is he saying future? I asked you at the beginning, where did he read that? I don't know. Yeah. Remnant is not yet a real... Oh, we went very far. We went to discuss the fifth one, but the idea that remnant is an invisible reality, I think that when we discussed, remnant is not yet a reality, we discussed. But this sociology, so sociological understanding of the remnant, laying an emphasis that the remnant should only be concerned with with flood, hunger, bad government, oppression of women, things like that. I don't think, is that the business of God's remnant really? I don't know. You will tell me. But let's stop there because I have another segment of the discussion that we need to go to. Now let's see what Ellen White says about the remnant. I've picked some quotations. We've looked at the current views on the remnant. I want us to look at Ellen White on the remnant. Number one, a visible remnant. I'll read just maybe one statement. There are several statements here. The people of God, symbolized by a holy woman and her children, were represented as greatly in the minority. In the last day, only a remnant still existed. Of this, John speaks as they which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. So if I were to highlight words that can be viewed as representing visible, were, the second line, were represented as greatly in what? In minority. They could be seen as a minority. But if you look at the next statement, God's remnant standing before the world as reformers, standing before the world as reformers. That's not something invisible. That's something very visible. Okay? As to show that the law of God is the foundation of all enduring reform, and the Sabbath, the fourth commandment, is to stand as a memorial of constant reminder of God's power. So according to Ellen G. White, the remnant is visible, at least according to my reading of these statements. Now the second one, which may be liable to your interpretation also, my interpretation is that remnant as the Seventh-day Adventist what? Church. She says SDA is the remnant. The enemy of the souls has sought to bring in the supposition that the Great Reformation was to take place among the Seventh-day Adventists, and that this Reformation would consist in giving up the doctrines which stand as pillars of our faith and engaging in the process of reorganization. Where is the Reformation to take place? What would result? The principles of truth that God in His wisdom has given to the remnant church would be discarded. If you look at this statement carefully, he discusses the term SDA, Seventh-day Adventist Church, and remnant on the same note. To him, or sorry, to her, SDA is what? Is remnant. There's some other statement that I would not make, I would not get down, but I think that would suffice. There are several other more. If we go to the next slide, her third view on the remnant is that remnant is not what? It's not perfect. She says, remnant is not perfect. There will be among the remnant of these last days, as there were in ancient Israel, those who wish to move independently, who are not willing to submit to the teachings of the Spirit, and would not listen to advice or counsel. So, remnant is not perfect. Back in my country, we have offshoots. They always come and claim that because the church has so many bad people inside, or so many bad leaders, then the church is no longer God's what? God's church. That's not what is presented in the spirit of prophecy. The wheat and the tares will exist together until the time of the end. The other view, which I've just mentioned, if we go to the next slide, the remnant will be shifted and the faithful remnant to remain. So the church may appear, this is a very familiar statement to most of us, the church may appear to be about to do what? To fall, but it does not fall. It remains, while the sinners in Zion will be shifted what? Out. The chaff separated from the precious wheat. This is a terrible ordeal, but nonetheless, it takes place. None but those who have been overcoming by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony will be found to be loyal to be and true, and without spot and stain of sin, without guile in their mouths. The remnant that purify their souls by obeying the truth gather strength from the trying process, exhibiting the beauty of holiness amid surrounding apostasy. You can read that in Maranatha. So there will be a remnant at the end of time. But this remnant will be done what? Will be shifted. And those who are not faithful will be shifted what? Out. And the faithful remnant will do what? Will remain. Faithful remnant will remain. So at the end of time there will be a shifting. Now let's look at the last view on the remnant by Ellen White. The faithful elsewhere will join the end time what? Remnant. She does not deny that there are faithful people elsewhere. There are faithful people elsewhere. But those people, at the end of time, will join the what? The remnant church. But in every age, the Lord Jesus has had a witness, a remnant, who trusted in the word of God. And today, in every place, there are those who hold communion with God. A vital undercurrent of influence is leading them to the light. And when the question comes to them, who is on the Lord's side, they will take their position for him. So there are people outside there who are not faithful. No. Who are faithful. At the end of time, they will join the remnant. So let's summarize the views that we've had about Sister White. What Sister White says about the remnant. The first is that there is a visible what? Remnant, according to Sister White. The second is SDA Church is the what? Is the remnant, according to Ellen G. White. SDA Church is the remnant. Then she also says the remnant is not what? It's not perfect. She also says the remnant will be shifted and the faithful remnant to do what? To remain. And she also agrees that the church needs to be not inclusive only, but exclusive. So if you look at these positions that Ellen White take on the remnant, it will be very helpful if we study them properly. Each one of them is really helpful. A visible remnant, remnant as a Seventh-day Adventist church, and so on and so forth. Now I would like to come to the final segment before we come to the question time of my presentation. Now this one is just a brief section. It deals with remnant, that is SDA Church and apostasy. There is a lot of discussion among other groups. I don't know whether in the Philippines you have offshoots. Do you have offshoots in the Philippines? Yeah. In my country, when I was a church pastor, one day when I graduated, I was posted to a church. Young minister. I'm still young, but those days a little bit young. There was a very strong offshoot. And you know what their teaching was? I don't know whether you have that in the Philippines. They were teaching in every prayer for food. For what? For what? You must do what? You must kneel down. You must kneel down. You have that here? Maybe you have it here. Then another teaching was women must wear clothes that are nine what? They measure. They go measuring, 9 from the floor. Because they read somewhere, I don't know where they read that, but it is there. It is there. They read, and then they come. So this fellow gave me a lot of trouble. He was, there was one man and many ladies in one. We call them back home. Like this is a church now. then there is a branch of this somewhere. Do you have that type of organization in Philippines? Where there's a church, and then we have what we call Sabbath school. In our place, we call them Sabbath school. The groups that have not grown to attain the strength of a church, we call them branch Sabbath school. You have them here? Yeah. So he was in one of my branch. He took the whole branch Sabbath school, man. Took with these teachings. I went there, but it helped me because I started reading the spirit of prophecy thoroughly. You know, in college, sometimes you just took the course, Prophet Among You, and something else. But I started reading those things properly, especially about prayer, kneeling in prayer. I think you went through some steps of hermeneutics here. I read all the texts, all that Sister White said about what? Prayer. And I found out that even Sister White herself mentioned so many places that you can, posture does not matter. Posture, standing, walking. Nehemiah prayed in his heart before the what? Before the king. So I went to them, talked with them, but they were so difficult. But that was okay. That was a group that just had some different practices and started practicing differently. But there was another one which said that the church has done what? Apostatized. The church has fallen. So they were calling, like the Revelation says, come out. So they were calling people from SDA church to them. I told them, don't come to my church. These ones have been preached to. Go outside and try and get others there and preach to them. They only want to come to SDA church. I don't know why. Now, there are so many groups like that who say SDA church has done what? Fallen, has apostatized. I didn't have time to go through all of them. I just clicked a website and found one. This one was interesting to me because it had a chronology of how SDA church apostatized. It is called, what is it called? World Last Chance. Do you have it here? In the Philippines? World Last Chance. And you can visit that website. It is there. It is there. How the SDA church has apostatized. It suggests in its teachings that Ellen White taught that the church will apostatize. So that's why it was interesting to me. I wanted to see what Ellen White said. If we look at the next slide, that's what I've just said. They acknowledge that Ellen White said that the church should not be called, there's a statement missing there, Babylon. Yeah, there's a statement missing there. The church should not be called Babylon. You can insert Babylon. But this is only up to June. Please forgive me for this. 1893. Please add 1893 after June. 1893. That nothing else was written before or after that on this subject. The statement here is they agree that Ellen White said you should not call the church what? Babylon. But they confined that to 1890 what? 93. That later on after that time, let's see the second statement. Ellen White predicted the fall of the SDA church, and they quote Review and Herald in August. The first one was in June when she said, do not call the SDA church what? Babylon. But in August, they claim that Ellen White predicted the fall of the SDA church. Then the third step is that in 1894, Ellen White confirmed that SDA church did not heed the Lord's counsel of not becoming married to the world. So they're trying to show that step by step, SDA church is going towards apostasy. Then if you go to the next slide, number 4, they are saying that the rejection of the testimonies by the SDA leadership in the GC session of 1901 was the turning point for the church. They say at that point, the church now was heading towards total apostasy. And then they say, shortly after this rejection, that should be rejection, after this rejection, God pronounced SDA Church an harlot and announced that his presence has left the SDA what? The SDA Church. So according to them, from 1903 onwards, the church has fallen. There's no more Church of God as SDA. The church has apostatized. And they use the statements of Ellen White to do this. Some students of theology here, you may take up this and do a little bit of study on this group and their claims. I didn't have enough time to look at all the details. What I found interesting, I don't know whether you've visited the new, there's a new website for Ellen G. White. Very nice. Very nice. It's better than the old one. Yeah, it can, I just clicked Remnant and Babylon, all the texts, and they come and can be given even the context. It's better than the old website. You can do a little bit study of this. But I did a brief analysis of what these people are saying. If you go to the next slide of analysis. Now, they claimed that the statement, the church shall not be called Babylon, was up to which year, if you are good students? Which year? 1893. So I was concerned. I wanted to look if Sister White made such statements later on or earlier on. And I've listed those statements down there, especially the manuscript release, number 154 to 155. If you read that manuscript release, it is in that website also. It was written in 1910, just before Sister White, some few years before Sister White died, and she was still talking of not calling the church what? Babylon in 1910. So these people are just picking text here and there and quoting them most of the time out of what? Out of context. Number two, the statement claimed to point the fall of the SDA church cannot be categorically interpreted so. They are saying the statement that I've quoted below there means that the church was seen or would fall. Let me just read it. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at that day of judgment than for you. And thou, O Capernaum, Seventh-day Adventists, who have had great light, which art exalted unto heaven, in point of privilege, shall be brought down to hell. Sister White is just giving strong statements to the SDA church. I don't think you can interpret this as implying the fall of SDA church. Next, the statements that the church has become worldly abound in the writings of Ellen White. These are warnings and do not point to rejection by God. I've read so many strong statements of Ellen White that the church has become what? Worldly. But such statements does not warrant us to say that now the church has done what? Has fallen. And now I want us to go to what Sister White says about the church, giving assurance about the church. Let me just read a few statements before I close. The next slide. I write these things to you, my brethren, if I did not believe that God's eye is over his people, I could not have courage to write the same things over and over again. God has a people whom he is leading and doing what? Instructing. One thing which was interesting to me in this quote is that it was written in 1907 and it was written to a conference, which means Sister White at that time, 1907, still regarded the SDA church as people of who? God, implying they were the church of God. Let's look at the next slide. Nothing in this world is so dear to God as his church. With jealous care he guards those who seek him. The Lord has not forsaken his people. Satan points the mistake that they have made and tries to make them believe that thus they have separated themselves from God. This was written in 1910. Okay. Now, things like statements, I'm making a final analysis here. Statements that the church has become world, I think that's a repetition. Forgive me for that. Let's go to the last one here. God's church until the end. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let us read this statement together. I'll look at your mouth if you are reading. 1, 2, 3, go. The church may appear to be about to fall, but it does not fall. It remains while the sinners in Zion will be shifted out, the chaff separated from the precious field. Thank you very much. I have now that assurance that should not make you very comfortable. That now I'm in the church, it is like a lift. It will just and place you where? In heaven. No. God's remnant does not mean that you are so special. It simply means that you have a lot of responsibility. I thank God for this church and for the truth that it has. And God has placed us where we should be at the moment when the world is coming to an end. We have a great responsibility to tell the world to join the church of God. Let me finish by saying this. Remnant gives us identity and mission. I do public evangelism. What is the purpose? If I'm not telling those people that they are in a problem and I'm pointing them to a right what? Direction. If there is no idea of remnant, our theology and mission is totally out. So let's affirm our belief in this church as the remnant of God. And thank God for being part of the remnant. That does not make us better than others, but it makes us responsible for others. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Now I would like to get your reflections, questions, comments. Anybody moderating, or I am the one pointing here?
Can I borrow again? I'll give it back.
Thank you, Pastor Rabach. I have important comments. I studied under Arthur White.
Ah, really? Grandchild.
He was from the seminary, conducted prophetic guidance class at PUC.
Good.
Arthur White, the grandson of Mrs. White. Now, the remnant is at the end. And if we read the story of the Christian church in Revelation 12, in Revelation 12 there is the Christian church in verse 1. And then she was persecuted for 1,260 years. The 1,260 years ended in 1798. And 1798 plus 2, that's 1800, plus 44, that is 1844. The remnant will arise at the end of 1798, and 1844 is the day she was called, Ellen White, the spirit of prophecy, the testimony of Jesus, the second mark of the remnant.
Good.
10 Commandments, and the spirit of prophecy, Revelation 19:10, is the spirit of prophecy, is the testimony of Jesus. Now this is the remnant church after 1798. If you have come in 2011, you are late. You are late. And the one who is teaching that everybody should pray every time you pray, kneel down, is a person with his fellowship at Manila Center. And I was the one who presided at Manila Center Church. He was this fellowship. And he is claiming now that they are the remnant. And as the church is harlot and Babylon. Now we have to deal with that. He is late so many years. 1844. And Mrs. White died in 1915.
Yes.
And she is claiming that he is the one rightly interpreting the writings of Mrs. White. And some of you, ministerial students, are attending his lectures.
Thank you very much.
So, a question? Okay.
You are presenting to us some interpretation of the writings of the Lady White, and that we defend, we stand with that, we are a Remnant church, but I have not seen that really was said word for word, verbatim. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is the only Remnant church and no other church. She did not say that. That's my question.
Yeah. Good question.
Another thing. Another question. Only one? Those people that you crossed in our screen, I don't know those people. Are they former members of this? I'm not a ministerial student. I am not connected with the Adventist church institution. I am just an ordinary member of the Seventh-day Church. And I've been preaching for the Seventh-day for almost 30 years. That's why I want to clarify. Can we prove that there is no remnant in the Remnant church?
There is no?
There's no remnant in the Remnant church. Because there's the statement that the only Remnant church is the Seventh-day Church. I am familiar with Pastor Bible here about the prophecy of total 1,206 years because every time I present Bible study, even conducting Adventist meeting, I used to present the Revelation prophecy. So my question is, why did not Ellen White mention word for word? And those people, who are those people that were claiming that Sabbath is Babylonian?
I think he has a point. It needs some research.
To come out with a statement that SDA Church is the remnant of God. I cannot deny it is not there, nor say it is there. But going by the quotation that I brought here, let me just read it in your hearing. The enemy of the souls are sought to bring in the supposition that the Great Reformation was to take place among the Seventh-day Adventists, and that this Reformation would consist in giving up doctrines which stand as pillar of our faith and engaging in the process of reorganization. Were this Reformation to take place, what would result? The principles of truth that God in His wisdom has given to the remnant church. God has given to the remnant church. Please, I think it is the 10th slide there. Count them. I didn't number them, but the 10th or the 11th. Okay. If you look at this statement, Sister White is talking about Seventh-day Adventists on the same breath as she is talking about the remnant church. My conclusion, after reading this statement, is, you need to convince me otherwise, my conclusion is, SDA is the remnant church. Okay, another
It says here in Selected Messages book to page 319. We cannot now enter into a new organization for this would mean apostasy from the truth. That's like Pastor Manu said, they are too late. They are not included in the Bible verse.
Yeah, so the other question that you raised now, this group WLC, they say, if you go to that website which I gave, they were former SDM members who saw that the church has done what? Apostatized, and now have left the church.
This
They are not a church, but it is an organization.
Because it is apostasy from the truth. If you join in a new organization, it is apostasy from the truth. We cannot leave this church.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. We have no more time. We'll give the time for the next lecture to be given by